Wow, okay, cool. I had my mic muted the entire damn time. Sorry about that. You guys missed all kinds of stuff. Uh, cool. Well, let's do this just to make things easy for the VOD later. Let me stop the stream and start the stream again real quick. YouTube had some audio difficulties a moment ago, so we're kind of restarting. Just giving a little background on the machine. The machine is rated pretty highly as far as difficulty is, and I think most of that's because of a certain user-to-user privesc that we have to do. That's a little bit obscure, but it was neat and it was fun to learn. You know, I'm not too big to admit that I got a couple pokes in the right direction. I'd like to think that I would have gotten there in the end just due to kind of how I was methodically going through things, but one of the pokes let me skip some rabbit holes that I would have normally otherwise gone down. Cool, so let's just jump right into it. I'm going to do the, as you saw a moment ago on the other streams, I am going to go ahead and just start the regular Nmap, full TCP ports, just to see what's out there. Additionally, we're just going to see if you can already see that I'm cheating up here, but I'm just going to make sure that it's got a web server on it, because I mean, what doesn't these days? So it does have a web server. Cool. So we're going to do, let's see here, what order to do these things in. We should wait for the Nmap to finish, because this is going to be useful. The great thing about this box, one of the things I love about this box, is that there's very little, if any, guessing at all on this box. And the cool thing about that is that there's little bits here and there that kind of poke you in the right direction and give you little tips on what you should be looking at next. And in my experience, I wouldn't say all hacking is guided, but there's very little where I'm just like randomly throwing shit against a box or a infrastructure or something. There's usually little tips that say, hey, you should check this out, or maybe I need to be focused more in this direction. So let's see, here we go. Okay, so there's just 22 and 80. So we'll switch this to just poke at 22 and 80. And we'll call this TCP scripts, and we'll use safe scripts, version detecting, safe scripts, all that stuff. That's what -A does. And this should come back pretty quick. All right. So it does the normal, SSH fingerprinting. It's like, okay, here's, the OpenSSH version and, a possibility on which Ubuntu version we're running. And here's the host keys, et cetera, et cetera. What's very interesting about the HTTP scripts, however, is this robots is denying all .txts. And that's important for the step we're about to do here, which is we want to, we'll throw up, I use dirbuster or GoBuster a lot. I also checked out this dir search, which I had cloned. So let's check out this dir search. So we want to use -u for URL, -e for extensions, -w for word list. And we can also look here, it's using .php. So because of the Nmap output and the fact that this is using PHP, we're going to do dir search. We're going to use extensions. We're going to do txt and PHP. And what's important about the robot's output is that normally I wouldn't do text, or sometimes I do, but usually when I hit a wall, I'm like, oh, I'm missing something. So we're going to add this text here. Let's see. So EU is HTTP 10.10.10.73, and then W is user share wordless. Was it dirbuster? Yeah. And then it's directory medium? No, is it 2.3? Yeah, medium. There we go. And is there a threads thing for this? Like -T for threads or force extensions? Yeah, T for thread count. T, let's do like 30. Okay, and dir search is going to go through. There's a /upload/assets, cool. Just catching up on chat for a minute while this runs. Has anybody pwned poison yet? Yes, I've done poison. That's another, excuse me, poison is one of my favorites. There was actually a whole list of boxes that I'm really excited to get retired because there were some really great boxes recently. Aragog was amazing, one of my favorites. Valentine was kind of neat, but fine. Celestial was great. Poison was phenomenal. Canapé is one of my favorites, like by far. I don't want it to be retired because I want people to do it for points, but man, I can't wait for that. I can't wait to make the video on Canapé. And I'm being asked, could I make a dedicated video for privilege escalation? Yeah, I plan to. I started making my pen test process videos, and I stopped after the first one. And that's not to mean I stopped completely. I just haven't gotten around to making those other ones because it was they take a lot of time to make, like a lot of time. So I am working on them though. Oh my gosh, it's taking a while. Let's see what else we can do. So let's take a look at this. Here we've got username and password. So let's see if we do, just like super simple. Wrong identification admin. So that's interesting. This tells us two things. First of all, it interpreted this as admin. What does this, let's break down what this means. This is SQL injection. What this is doing is it's saying, okay, let's assume that the SQL statement is like, select username or select star from users where username equals this, right? And so what this is doing is it's saying, okay, this is where we're typing, right? This is where this username variable is going to come in. So what we do by doing that little incantation is that we say, okay, close that, and then so we want to select all from users where username equals blank or the string 1 equals the string 1. And the reason that we don't close out this this quote here is because if you notice in the code, there's going to be this extra quote and semicolon at the end. So what we're doing is we're doing a thing called quote balancing. And that's just one of many ways to do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but this one works, and it's one of the ones I use by default. But what this means is that it's going to go line by line in the table, and it's going to say, hey, are you blank or does 1 equal 1? And then the first line is going to say, yep, it absolutely 1 equals 1, and it's going to return immediately. So this tells us two things. One, this is vulnerable to SQL injection. That's very important. Two, it also tells us that the first user in the usernames is admin. So that gives us who the super user is more than likely. They're more than likely going to be user ID 1 or 0. There are likely other usernames, but that's the one that comes back. What also happens here is that wrong identification. That's interesting. Let's see what happens if we just do like a random stuff. We see try again. So this is also telling us that since we're getting two different error messages when we try and log in, this allows us to kind of use Boolean logic to detect if what we're saying is true or not. So for instance, we can tell, we can do something like, you know, blank or, you know, 1 equals 2, right? So let's do this. 1 equals 2. You notice how we get try again? So, or 1 equals 1. Wrong identification. Or 1 equals 2. Try again. So this is telling us something important, that if we evaluate true, if our SQL statement evaluates true, then we let's see here. If it evaluates true, then we get the wrong identification, right? Or 1 equals 1. Wrong identification. And if it evaluates false, then it's going to say try again. Since we have this, we can actually go ahead and start working on SQL map. Now, we're going to show SQL map, but let's think about this logically. So if we can do something like, you know, let's see, how can I explain binary inference? So if we do something silly like, you know, and I'm going to use some pseudocode because I forget the exact syntax here, but if we do something like blank or let's say like username from users first letter equals A, or something like that. It'll go through, and if it's true, if this is accurate, if the first letter in the first user and first username in users is A, then it'll come back and say wrong identification. If it's not A, then it'll say try again. And again, this is not valid SQL. This is just pseudocode to kind of show what I'm trying to talk about. So we could write a script or use a script like SQL map to go through and say, is the first letter A? No. First letter B? No. First letter C? No, etc. until it finds the first letter. And then I can say, okay, well, what if I want the like second username, you know, or whatever, however we state this. So there's the way SQL map, or the way you actually do this, is there's some like meta tables in SQL map or in SQL that say, you know, like, you know, information schema. It'll actually list like what table names you have, and there are separate sub functions that say, I want to know like the first character in the first username. It's sort of like slicing, if you're familiar with slicing in like Python and other programming languages. Anyways, so again, since we know when things evaluate true versus false, we can use SQL map to do this. So we're going to do SQL map. We're going to do something else real quick. We're going to, let's just do a fake one. So admin. Oops, we don't have Foxy Proxy going. I'm going to use our pattern-based stuff. Admin. Never remember, please. Thank you. Cool shortcut that I like to use with SQL map here is if you're using burp or some other way that you can save off a web request, we can actually save item. And, oops, seeing some spoilers there. We'll go into the stream HTTP, we'll go into Falafel, and we're going to call this admin SQLi. And that's admin because that's the password that I used there. All right. Now we go, now we can do SQL map. And we'll do -R to pull in a request. And we'll use this admin request. There's some other stuff. So we're going to go ahead and do like risk equals 3, level equals 5. We just want to like blow this thing out of the water. Typically because the type of stuff that we're talking about here, where you're using like this blind binary inference, is usually like some of the higher levels in SQL map. I don't think we need risk because we're not actually doing timing based, so we could probably actually drop this. I'm going a little off script here because when I did this, when I solved this, I used risk and level. So if this doesn't work immediately, or if this doesn't work, maybe we have to go back. Oh, I also need to do something else. Since I've already done this, I need to actually get rid of this, or else it's just like going to come back and say, hey, I already did this for you. Okay, we're going to do, so we've got this. We know already that the parameter username is the one that's vulnerable, right? This one here, this is the one that's giving us the binary inference. So we want to use the P username so that it's not trying password 2 and like duplicating effort over and over again. I also know that it's the DMEMS MySQL, and I just know this from, I think I have to like do that. I know this from previous, again, just to kind of speed things up because this is going to take a few minutes and I don't like to have too much lag time on the stream. Let's check out the SQL map. I want to show you something useful for binary inference. So we look at the detection phase. We're actually trying to determine whether or not this SQL map is working. And you can look through here, and we've got a couple things. Here's your levels. Here's your risks. Again, as I recall, we needed level not risk. So we'll see if that happens. But this is very important. So since we're doing this binary inference, we need to know, or SQL map rather, more accurately, needs to know if something is coming back as true or not. So we can use this dash dash string to tell you what evaluates to true. Now, since we know that the false is, I'm going to go like, we know that false is try again, we could also use the not string try again to show it what's false. But since we know what's true, we'll just do this. We need this wrong identification. SQL map R admin SQLi level equal 5 P username BMS my SQL string. Why is it doing that? Okay, this is the last time, I swear. All right, wrong identification. Cool. We'll put that there, and then I think this is good here. We'll do a dash dash dump to actually dump everything, but we'll be able to tell pretty quickly if it's injectable or if we need to add risk. Is the other useful reason to do this. Why? Dir search, why are you failing me? Dir search, why are you mean? So I have to do an F to force the... Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Why is that true? Force extensions for every wordless entry. Huh. Okay, well, you learn something new every day. See, I learned stuff in this too. Power Powerade661 says GoBuster is finicky for you. Yeah, I find it's finicky for me too. That's why I'm trying out Dir Search instead. But you know, it looks like I have to do the -F or not. So there's a robots.txt. I mean, we already knew that was there because Nmap during its scripts, its safe scripts phase will actually find, you know, the standard stuff like robots.txt. SQL map, you're killing me here. Do I need the risk? Maybe that's the problem. I feel like it would have found it already. Yeah, let's do the. I feel like it's SQL map should be going faster than this. So let's do the risk. And while that's running, maybe we can take a look at the help again and see what those actually do. Because I thought I had it. Verbosity target. Risk. Okay. See. Yeah, 2 adds time-based, 3 adds ore-based. Oh, yes. Okay, so we need that. For some reason, I was thinking that the 3 was time-based, and that's why we didn't need 3. But that would make sense. Okay. That's why that happens. Powerade says, don't forget threads on SQL map. That's a good idea, actually. I should do that. I'm a little nervous of like hammering this box too hard. Just because like this thing's hammering it already. Let's see what happens. Okay, that's what I've been looking for. Cool. We can go ahead and kill this now. We'll just exit. Cool. And this thing. Remember what I was saying earlier, or maybe I said that before the actual mic came on. But remember what I was saying when I was talking about how this box always kind of like leads you to the next step, or at least drops minor hints on what you should be looking at next. Well, the robots.txt disallowing all text files is pretty unusual. So there's typically, it's an indication that something there's something they're trying to hide in TXTs. Let's see. So let's do this. First of all, let's wget it just for our notes. We can curl it as well. Just to take a look at it. And now that we don't have the 2 running, let's quit this and I think it's T for threads, right? Threads. I guess it's -- threads. Let's say 10. Okay. So we've got this email here about CyberLaw. Malicious site takeover. A user named Chris has informed me that he could log into my account without knowing the password, then take full control of the website using image upload feature. So this is kind of spoilery, or maybe not spoilery so much as hinty. We'll call it hinty. Again, this is the kind of thing that makes recon so important while you're doing an engagement. Because while we might not find something like this during an engagement, we do find stuff similar. We do find stuff that really kind of tweaks our brain just a little bit to say, maybe I should start looking over here. Or it'll give us information like later, right? And it says, take full control of the website using the image upload feature. So, like later on when we are in the site, when we're able to do cool stuff with the site, we'll take a closer look at the image upload feature. Additionally, we get this thing, a user named Chris. So it's likely that Chris is a valid user. So, and we can tell because it'll say wrong identification if it's valid, and if it's not, then it'll say try again. And here we go. So we now know that Chris is also a valid user, which is useful. Oh my God, SQL map, come on. Is there something I'm missing in that query? Let's see. Username, threads 10. No, it should be finding it for us. Abraxas is in the Twitch chat. Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you, the Abraxas. And while this is kind of going through, let me catch up on the Twitch or YouTube chat. Plusham's in the house. Let's see. Good to see everybody. Twitter, he doesn't have Twitter, or they don't have Twitter. Not everybody does. Why don't I have Patreon? I don't think I'm consistent enough for Patreon. Maybe in the future. Maybe if I start doing this, weekly or at least 3 times a month, maybe I'll think about it. But frankly, I do this in my spare time because I like doing it. I like hanging out with you people. I don't do this as a job. I do work a lot, my real job, and I also try and spend time with my wife and just generally have a good work-life balance. So I don't think I'm consistent enough in general, but maybe in the future. Well, I'll think about it. So right now it's just a hobby. And then Len Tsukimori is asking me to do a Vuln Hub machine. I did a Vuln Hub machine a couple videos ago. I try and keep it, Hack the Box seems to get the most interest, but I do sometimes do Vuln Hub. So, why is this going so slow? This was faster when I was testing it earlier. I wonder if people are following along with me and they're on the same VPN. Or maybe I'm just missing something. Let's take a look at this again. Well, privesc 3, P username, DBMS is MySQL, string wrong identification, threads 10. Am I missing something? So the request, I don't need anything because I pulled it straight from burp. I have the threads set. I have the parameters set. I have the DVMS set. Excuse me. Level and risk are both set. The string is set. Do I have the string set incorrectly? Maybe I can, since I know what type of techniques it's using, we can probably narrow that down a little bit. Boolean-based blind, I think, is the only one we need. We definitely don't need T. Let's see. Did I spell wrong identification incorrectly? Nope. no typo there. Okay, let's do technique equals B. I think just B. Or BE maybe. Since we're not doing the other stuff anymore, let's whoop, maximum of 10. Okay, so I was right with 10. Let's catch up on this. So somebody asked, says Alex G says, since you have usernames already, can you use Hydra to get the passwords for that login? Yeah, you could use Hydra. I'm typically not a very big fan of Hydra. Brute forcing in that manner is slow. I mean, you're only getting like dozens of guesses per second, maybe hundreds, but even with hundreds of guesses per second, to make it all the way through even a smaller list like RockU is takes a long time. Additionally, I tend not to like just brute like the blindest of brute force tools on things. I know ahead of time that Hydra would find this password for one of the users, but not knowing that ahead of time, especially knowing that there's SQLi, generally when challenge writers involve SQL injection, it's not going to be brute forceable, or it's going to be very difficult to brute force, because SQLi is a more not intelligent as in like only intelligent people use it, but there's logic to the exploitation that allows you to get passwords that aren't brute forceable and the like. Let's see. Oh, we have somebody from Mixer. Hello, Superman AK907. Welcome to the stream. Over in YouTube, yes, I'm married. Burp is sweet. That is accurate. Yeah, I think a lot of time, I think the more you understand how the tool works, I think there's kind of like a peak, or like a curve to it. The more you understand how the tool works, the less time you spend messing with it. But then the deeper you understand the tool, the more time you spend tweaking it to make sure it's operating efficiently or correctly. Frankly, I probably shouldn't be tweaking the techniques here. But yeah, it wasn't taking this long. Oh. Definitely shouldn't be taking this long. Let's... Is it this one? Yeah, these are... I was doing some testing earlier today. I mean, I don't understand what's different between these two, but all tester parameters do not appear to be injectable. probably because of the specific techniques I was using. It has to be something with the string, because that's like, I mean, so this is not saying to only use username, but it's not password that's injectable here. You want to try with union characters? Sure. No, we don't need to keep doing it because I know that username, that's the one that's vulnerable. Okay. So if we look, now we can try and tweak this down, right? So it looks like that it needed the union queries to work. So we can do techniques equal u. And then, no, it's doing Boolean based blind. What is the problem here? So it is the B. And then we'll do P username. And then T for 10. And we'll dump. So this is literally going through and doing exactly what I explained earlier. It's coming through and it's saying, hey, you know, is the first letter of the database F? Yes. Okay. Is the next letter A? Yes. Is the next letter B? No. And then it goes through till L, and then it says, okay, that's it. And that's how it's determining the different usernames and the different table database names, table names, usernames, etc. If you notice, it's populating it out kind of not necessarily one letter at a time because it's multi-threaded, but you know, you saw it kind of fill in across. Do we want to store the hashes for further processing? Sure. Do we want to do dictionary-based attacks? Yes. We can have SQL map do it for us, or we can, you know, save off the hashes to a different file so that we can, you know, run, you know, hashcat or John the Ripper or something else against it. But I know ahead of time that this is good enough. It's not the most sophisticated of password crackers, but it'll work. And here we go. We already see Chris's password is juggling. So that's useful. It ran through its entire database, or its entire word list, and it couldn't find the one for admin, which is unfortunate. But that's okay. We can figure out admin later. It also saved all of this stuff for us so that we can reference it. I'm going to go ahead and just copy the users file to my local directory for my notes. And there we go. We can see, you know, the user ID, the role they have, username, password, and then here's even the decrypted password, or the cracked password if we need it. Let's log into Chris. Chris, we're going to use juggling. Oops, login. Okay, login successful. That was interesting. So he's a juggler by day, hacker by night. Interesting. Circus juggler. He always eats falafel afterwards. Pentest random sites as a hobby. It's funny how sometimes both the hobby and work have something in common. This is a hint. We'll just come out right out and say it. When I was first coming through this, these hints seemed pretty heavy-handed to me, and just seeing juggler Sometimes the hobby and work have something in common. Kind of resonated with a blog post that I had heard about before. And the thing that really tipped the scale is this E0, blah, 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 blah. PHP has a type problem. And by that I mean that it is there's three different ways to, or two different ways to evaluate something. So in normal programming, you'll see something where like let's do Python. You can do something like A equals 2, right? Or B equals 3. Now, if you wanted to compare them, if you want to say if A is equal to B, do this thing, print equal. This is a comparison. This is how you tell if something is equal to something else. And of course they're not equal, but if we wanted to do, we could do that again, else print equal. And unequal, right? Cool. In PHP, and I'm not very good with PHP, so you'll have to bear with me here, but we'll do something like, A equals 2, B equals foobar. And then you can, well, like I said, I'm not very good with PHP, so PHP if, I think it's just, so we do if, and then we'll say if A is equal to B, echo equal. Oh. Oops. Yeah, okay. Anyways, in PHP, I'm not going to bother like relearning PHP to just demonstrate this, but basically the way PHP works is you can do a double equal sign, and that will compare things. The assumption if you use a double equal sign is that they are of the same type. You just assume that the users are being nice to you. What double equals does not do is confirm that they're the same type. PHP actually has a separate comparison syntax, which is triple equals, to say if they're not the same type and they're not the same value, then they're not equal. Or even if they appear to be the same value, if they're not the same type. For instance, in Python, we can do something like this. A equals 2 and B equals 2. And those, A equals B. Oops, nope, I messed that up. A equals 2. And then if we do A equal to B, we get a false. And that's because Python automatically recognizes that these are not the same. This is a string of 2, and this is an integer of 2. If we do something like this, int B, then it says absolutely it's true, because we have then typecasted B into an integer of 2 rather than a string of 2. In order to get this functionality in PHP, you have to use the triple equals. Otherwise, it just goes all kinds of crazy stuff. Somebody in the Twitch, Xruli in the Twitch chat, did a laughing face to assuming nice users. Never assume that the users are being nice if you're a developer, or pretty much ever, because users like me roll around and just say, hey, what's this, and then click on things and ruin everything. Okay, now how do we make use of this? The blog post I was referring to earlier is one that was written by Josh Wright. My S key's weird. I need to clean the keyboard. I've had this keyboard for 5 or 6 years now. I really need to eventually take it apart and just clean everything out. So type juggling. Is this the one? I think this is the one. Yeah. Here is a here is a blog post that's fantastic. Basically, when the whole type juggling thing came out, Josh wrote an amazing blog article that summarized the full disclosure article that Joss Wetzel's posted. And what it comes down to say is that let's see if I can. Any thing that starts with okay, anything that starts with E0 is going to be, instead of being read as a hash by PHP, it's going to assume that's an integer. And because of some intricacies of the way PHP works, it actually sees 0. This will equate to, when it's being compared, if you're not using the triple equals, this will be equated to 0 when it's comparing against other things. So if we're able to get another thing that hash collides. It doesn't even have to be a full hash collision. It doesn't even have to hash collide with this actual hash. It just needs to hash collide with 0e, which is useful. So if we look, this hash here, or this string here, hash collides with 0e. I'm going to take like 30 seconds and just kind of catch up on the chat. If anyone has any questions on this, speak up now, because this is really, this is like, if you can't grasp this, and I'm not saying it's easy to grasp, but if you can't grasp this, you cannot solve this box. Like, there's just no way. Oh, well, I guess there is now because there's spoilers, but this is something that you need to be able to grasp, this concept of type juggling. This is something that we still occasionally, and thankfully not very often anymore, this is still something we see in the wild. Like, this is definitely something that still exists. So let me catch up on chat, and if you have questions, please, please, please post them in the chat. Let's see. IPSEC blows my mind. Yeah, dude, that guy's like crazy smart. IPSEC, I think he's actually, I saw him, yeah, he's in the Twitch chat. So yeah, man, keep up the great work, IPSEC. I'm blown away by watching your videos. I'm really looking forward to watching your video on this one, actually, because I think you probably, as always, like did way more than what I did. Let's see. PHP has more than just a type problem. Yep, that's true. It's got a lot of problems. Let's see. PHP sucks. PHP, I wouldn't go so far to say that PHP just straight sucks. It is not friendly to its developers. Its developers have to consider a lot. It does weird things. So, let's see. Live Overflow's in the room. Oh my God, Live Overflow is in the room. Holy crap. Hey, man, like, we've got a celebrity here. Let's see, not showing any tricks, but explains the concept. Oh yeah, that's a great point. So if you, I'm not going to read through the whole thing here, but if you're still confused about the type juggling or how it does its type conversions, or other things call it type casting, check out the type juggling page on the actual official PHP docs. This is something that you'll see me do occasionally in my videos, and I didn't do it in this one because there was a blog that explained it. There are a lot of times when I'm trying to figure out how to abuse a specific function or whatever, and I will often go straight like straight for the docs, so the Python docs, the PHP docs, whatever they are, and find out exactly you know, how they're supposed to work and exactly how they do work, to help me kind of figure out how to abuse them. The other great thing about the PHP docs is that there's these user contributed notes, and a lot of times you can actually see people like warning other people of possible vulnerabilities and security mistakes and stuff. And what's great is because they're warning other people, but they basically give me a walkthrough on how to abuse the functionality. IPsec brings up another great point. Not using a framework sucks. Just going with raw PHP opens a lot of room for mistakes. And I don't think that's just a PHP thing. Java, Python, anything. Rolling your own anything, this is not just true for crypto, but rolling your own anything can often result in mistakes. If there is a framework that has a lot of community interaction and input, that means that there's a lot of peer review going on, and they've solved these problems in a relatively, robust manner. That's not to say they don't have any problems, but you're better off going with a framework and then modifying from that framework than just rolling your own everything. Anyways, going back to everything else, we're going to, let's see, we have trying to get started with hack the box stuff. This is from Yesenia. Trying to get started with hack the box stuff, and I feel so hopeless seeing this kind of stuff. College just doesn't go over anything practical like this. Yeah, I don't know that much college is going to go through anything offensive. The one thing that college does do is it gives you a solid, well, it provides a solid foundation of how things work and how to learn things, and then you have to go off from there. A good way to start out, I think, is over the wire. Hack the Box is probably not a good intro place. Over the Wire is a great intro place, and it goes over a lot of like Linux and web fundamentals. Start on Bandit, go to Leviathan, and then depending if you want to, what route you want to go. For web stuff, I would say Nata's next. But yeah, Hack the Box can get very hard, and this is not one of the easiest boxes either. All right, moving on. So we know that this hashes to an E4 something, and we can double check this because we don't all just listen to what's on the internet. We can see that E4 or the 0E is this hash. Now the -n in echo, this is important when you're hashing things. A new line character, certain control characters matter when you're hashing stuff. -n will remove that new line from the echo, because if you don't do it, let's do this. You see, this hash is completely different. Now, what happens if we can do this? We're gonna do -e, and then we'll do -e allows you to do control characters. I forget if it doesn't do new lines. Okay, it does do the new line. Now, if we do this. Forget if adding the new line. Okay. This is kind of a roundabout way to illustrate what's going on here, but this is important. This is very important. So -e allows you to do control characters, and -n strips the default new line. So when we do this is basically just this raw string. There's no control characters or new lines or carriage returns or anything associated with this string. It's just this. Just this hashes to here. When you're inputting something into a password field, when you're inputting something into a password field, there won't be any new lines or anything on it. They probably use some sort of strip functionality on it before they hash it. So this is what putting this into the password field will hash to. If you're hashing on your box like this, the equivalent of this without any -n's or -e's is going to be this. You're going to have an implicit new line on the end of that echo, and as you can see, that changes how the things hash. The other thing you can do is if you do like echo, or let's do vi foo, and you see there's no new lines or anything. There's only one line in this. So then we'll cat foo into MD5 sum. I guess there's a new line at the end of that. Interesting. So yeah. this just shows you how tricky it is to get things to hash correctly and hash the way you're expecting them to. The hash of a file is not necessarily the same as the hash of the string, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely pay attention to that. But so we can do admin, and without even knowing the password, if you remember, cyberlaw.txt, we can log in without knowing the password using this juggling technique. Login successful, and here we go. And here's this file upload functionality that this CyberLaw was talking about. Now, we know typically that file uploads are pretty vulnerable. We have exploited them quite a lot in the history of this channel. This one's a little different though. This one is asking for a URL rather than like an actual specific upload. This does a couple things. One, we can't do the typical like burp intercept and change it. I guess we could, but we'd have to intercept like we'd have to set up our own web server and then man in the middle between our web server and their web server, which is a thing. Additionally, if we look, let's just do some prototyping real quick. We do Python http.server 80, and we do like echo. Let's do this. Save image as. We'll just call this that. And then we'll do 14.7. We can actually see the command that's being ran. So the PHP or whatever is running this basically says, I want you to cd into this directory, and then I want you to wget the thing. And this is where the wget's happening. So can we maybe do this? It says invalid URL. So it's looking specifically for, we're looking specifically for a URL. We can't like do a command injection or anything like that. All right. So what can we do? So we can, let's do the typical, just upload a PHP shell, right? So if we do, let's see, kind of PHP shell do I want? Do MSF Venom. Let's take a look at what type of do this, or let's do, So we'll do MSF Venom. You know what? We'd skip Meterpreter all the time. We're going to use Meterpreter anyways, because really we're not going to be in the shell for very long. And I just want to get this moving. 14.7, and we'll L port 443. All right. Here we're going to do HTTP 10.14.7 totes legit.php. Bad extension. Okay. So it only wants an image, right? Okay, we got our handler set up here. We're going to, okay, it wants us to only upload an image, right? So how can we do that? We can head 3 falafel, and all this is doing, all the head 3 is doing is just grabbing the like the magic bytes. If we look at this, if we look at this, as like it's just getting like the first little bit of the PNG. Basically, it's to trick anything. It's to trick anything looking at the file type. If we run a file on Falafel, it shows it's a PNG. If we run a file on totes legit, it's ASCII, right? So if we do head and 3 falafel, and then we cat, and this is just saying I want you to cat from standard in, which is what this is doing. It's outputting the first 3 lines of falafel, piping that into the standard in of cat, so that's that. And in addition to standard in, I also want totes legit, and we'll pipe all of that into totes png.png or .php. So if we file totes png, it thinks it's a PNG file, right? So if it's only checking the file type on the way in, then that'll get around it. And again, bad extension. Okay, so what if we move totes PNG PHP to totes PNG PNG? Seven totes PNG PNG. Okay, that worked. Cool. So we know that there's a /uploads. So if we go in here, let's do another one. 10, 10, 10, 73. And then there should be a totes PNG PNG there. This doesn't have... okay, there's, not a PNG. And also, we didn't get a callback, right? Cool. So what's going on? Well, it's not processing the PHP code in the PNG. That's what's going on. Servers generally, unless they're grossly misconfigured, only process PHP on specific file types, and they usually say, specifically say, like only loaded on .php or whatever. We need to figure out how to get that to work. I spent a little bit of time on this section here, But what I noticed when I was going through the page is know your limits was an interesting statement for that. So I started thinking, well, what happens if we make it a really long file name? So what I did for this is and user share metasploit, and it's not modules, tools. I don't think this is it. Yeah, there it is. Pattern create. We can actually generate a pattern. Most of the time, we use this for exploitation, like if we're filling up a buffer full of stuff. You know, we're doing like a buffer overflow or something, and we want to see where the boundaries for the different registers are. We use this a lot, but it's also very helpful because if we do something crazy like let's do Python C print a times, say, five. Let's say 2, not 55, because so Linux has a file name size limit, and it's like 256 or 255. So let's make it a little smaller than that. Let's make it 250 so that we can put the four character extension on the end of it. If we just do like touch.png, and then we do that same head 3 and 3 falafel. I'm in the wrong thing. Stream HTTP falafel. Then we'll head over there. All right. And if we head n3 falafel, cat standard in AAA. Input file is output file. Yeah, I did that on purpose. Cool. Let's change this to, this last one will be B. Cool. And if we do a file on A, B, it thinks it's a PNG. Cool. Let's grab this entire thing and 14.7/. Now, what happens here? Name is too long. Okay, it works because A, we have a .png. B, excuse me, it is a file of PNG. This is a file type of PNG. That may or may not matter. But what happens is it says, oh, it's too long. So new name is, let's check this out. It's just A. Now, I don't necessarily want to count how many A's there are. So instead, we will use this pattern create. And what did we say? 250, right? And what it's doing is it's generating a unique pattern throughout this entire thing. So, and this is why it's useful in like exploit development, because it's really like it's unique to here. So, like any 4 bytes or any, I think 3 bytes are fully unique across the entire pattern, no matter how long it is. Or not no matter how long it is, but for a very large size. So we can take this and we'll just move A, B to this.png. And now we'll take this, HTTP 10, 10, 14, 7. And so now we have a new name. This is how long the file can be. It will take this many characters, and if we want to do We want to make it a .php, right? We go 1, 2, 3, 4 because it's .php. That's 4, right? And then we just add .png at the end of it. So then we can move totes .png to this. And if we take this 10, 10, 14, 7 / this, it should work. Name's too long, it's shortening it. Let's make sure that the new name is what we wanted. It is not. That's interesting. Wait. 6a. Yeah, that's very interesting. Why did that happen? 234.php.png. Totes. So it came back and it was like 6a had 4 more. I wonder why that is. Oh, because damn it. Okay, we only have this one now. So it came back and said, new name is this. So we're moving AA to this 1, 2, 3, 4 .png, or sorry, php.png. Okay, this should work, hopefully. 10, 10, 14, 7. Wait. What is happening here? I don't understand. Okay, so this worked. We're just going to go here. And I'm wondering if because of its file size limitation, it's just not showing us the whole thing. Nope. I bet it's the other one. Nope. Oh, yeah. Somebody mentioned typo in the... Why are you being a pain in the ass? Okay, let's restart this. Okay, we're going to move AA to totes.php. We're actually going to move that because it's a PNG to totes.png. Okay, we're going to remove AA. We're going to pattern create. User share metasploit tools. And 3. All right, HTTP 10, 10, 14, 7. And we're going to take this whole thing in here. Oh, no, not that one. Okay. Okay, new name is here. Saving to this. That's the important thing, right? What is it saving to? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. php.png. Let's do this. We need to move. I'm going to copy totes .png to this. I just don't understand why it's doing that. See if we can. There we go. Yeah, okay. So what's happening is this output here, where it's saying saving as, like, can't get, like, it doesn't get the whole file name. There must be, when it starts to approach the limit, it gets a little funky. Its different tools get a little funky on what it's telling us. But this works, and probably if we would have tried it correctly a few attempts back, it would have worked as well. But this is saying, like, here's what it's saved to. This is what it's saved to, and when we just put PHP on the end of it, like, it resolved correctly, and you can see it's still loading here. Cool. Now we have an interpreter session. Oh. So we're interacting with 3. We'll get UID. We're www data. If we look here, we're in the uploads directory. If we back up 1 and look, ugh. Okay, now we're in HTML. Damn it. Okay. We're in the HTML directory. We can take a look at all the different stuff. Here's the robots.txt file we're looking at. There's cyberlaw. There's a bunch more, but connection is something that always interests me. So Dam, who I think is also the box creator you said earlier, when I double click on this, let's double check. When I double click on this, oh my god, it's too big. And of course, we're on a 1080p screen, so I'll never like be able to, let me see if I just take the whole thing. When I double click on this, normally it's going to stop at boundaries. Yep, that's exactly what's happening. So it's stopping at the .php. That's why. Cool. Thanks for the heads up. We're going to, anyways, moving back to this. So that's what was causing the problem there. If you look like here, you see how it doesn't actually highlight the exclamation point? Same thing here. It's getting stopped at the dot for the PHP. Cool. So we're going to cat the connection because maybe it's got creds in it, maybe it's got you know, database stuff, whatever. We'll look and we'll see that Mosh is database username Mosh, database password Falafel is really tasty. Let's grab this. And we'll just vi action.php. We'll just paste that in there for notes' sake. But yeah, so here's database creds at least. If we cat etc password, we also see that Mosh is a user. So it's very likely that there's some credential reuse here. And this is very common. When you encounter users that are also admins of services on the box, it is often the case that they are lazy and take shortcuts and reuse passwords. And that's not to call them lazy like it's a bad thing. You know, we all have to take shortcuts to get our job done efficiently. But a little more extra effort would have prevented me really from SSHing into this box, which we're about to do now. So we will SSH Mosh at 10.10.10.73. And there we are. Now we're in a shell. So we're going to bash because for some reason it doesn't have a login. Like a login shell set there. Okay, so we can exit out of this interpreter. We don't need it anymore, and frankly, we don't need this pane anymore. Okay, this is where things get a little bit tricky. If you look here, we've got a user.txt. Fine, that's great. But as people who are familiar with Hack the Box know, that is only half, and oftentimes not even half the journey. There's a long way to go yet. We don't have any sudo rights. We don't really have much of anything. But remember, if we cat etc password again, there's another user called Yossi. And it's possible that they have rights. It's also possible that any of these other users have rights, but generally I like to start with actual users rather than you know, service users first. How do we migrate to this person? Now this is where things get tricky. This is actually where I learned quite a bit. Let's first start by doing like ID. We can see, you know, what our user ID, group ID, and here's all the groups that we belong to. And we belong to a lot. If we look, we can kill this. Like, it's not common, granted, I'm root, so I don't need to be a part of any other groups, but it's not common to be really this many, or at least this many, like arbitrary ones. If you see a lot of user groups, you tend to see like custom user groups that are like, you know, developers and, you know, whatever the name of a project is, developer and stuff like that. This is unusual. So let's cat etc group and let's grep Mosh. Well, we don't need to grep Mosh because we already see all the stuff we belong to here. So let's grep Yossi. Yossi is also part of a lot. Part of disk, CD-ROM, dip, plug dev, LP admin, and Samba share. And this is the one at the very beginning of the video, the very beginning of the stream, I mentioned that I got a little bit of a nudge here. I was told, after numerous rabbit holes that I went down, I was told to look at the groups that we belong to. So first I started going down a massive rabbit hole of admin, like just basically, because since we're both part of the admin group, I started looking at like every file that was owned by admin, everything that was read or readable or writable as admin, et cetera, et cetera. And like I said, massive, giant rabbit hole. I started doing the same for each one of these until I got to video. And I'm just going to cut out all of the rabbit holes because really this was insane. But we'll do some find commands to check out video and what's going on here. So we're going to find in root, we're going to find, let's see, is it group video? I think it's group. And there's only 4 files, and remember in Linux everything is a file, and sometimes it's a little rough to get your head around. But there's only 4 files that are owned by root or by this video group. And if we look here, we can actually even do a Actually, I think it's this. Yeah, okay. So these are owned by root video, and they have the permissions of read write for both root and for the group video, but nothing for anyone else. No execute, nothing like that. I started Googling all of these different files, and I kind of lucked out because when I started Googling the very first one, FB0. How to use dev FB0 as a console from user space or output text to it. I'm like, wait a minute, that could be damn useful. Is it possible that not only are things being output to it, but I can read from it, right? And Plisham points out that this part was tough, and yeah, so the time from getting user to getting root, or basically from getting user to getting Yossi, for me was like a week and a half. It was probably like 10 to 12 hours, like start to finish time, like time spent working on it. But it took me about a week and a half to get to this point. This was rough. If you got stonewalled here, do not feel bad. I think a lot of people did. This is a very interesting and unique way of doing things. But it was cool because it taught me some stuff. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, you know, I can output stuff to it. Neat. Can I read from it? And it's like, dev FB0. Take a screenshot with dev FB0. I'm like, cool. So it's like, it must be some sort of video frame buffer. I assume that's what FB stands for. And this guy's just like, oh, just copy it to a file. And I'm like, what? Can I do that? So let's do file dev FB0. It just thinks it's a special character. Cool. What if I cat dev FB0 to temp foobar? Cat dev FB0 temp foo.raw. Now if I file temp foo.raw, that's interesting. Maybe it's not cat. Dev FB0 to temp foo.raw. Is that what they said here? Yeah, copy, not cat. At first I tried to cat it, right? I was like cat FB0, and you get nothing. So if we file temp foo.raw, still seeing as this weird file. That's odd. I'm not sure what the deal there is, but we can't do anything with this here. especially since we said we're taking a screenshot, right? We need some sort of, image editor or something. So let's get it off that box. We'll SCP mosh at 10.10.10.73 temp foo.raw to here. And we're going to cat connection.php so we have his password again. Now if we file this, there we go. Okay, now we're actually seeing something useful. This is a targa image data. I only have one application on this box that can deal with images, so we're going to go ahead and load up the GIMP. And yeah, people are pointing out that cat should work. Cat did work. What was confusing me was when I did the cat, I was getting this weird file type, and I was expecting this file type. So that's all the confusion was there. Cat worked fine. And we're going to open foo.data. And what is this? This looks some sort of like out of... everything seemed kind of off kilter, and not knowing really what to do with this, I started flipping through all the different options, and that didn't really help. So I just started kind of checking all this stuff out, and I noticed that it's messing with the size of things. So I think it's 350, right? So I just started. Okay, that didn't really do much, but fine. But as I started messing with this, it started kind of realigning. I've seen a lot of CTFs where this sort of like visual stego or whatever is being used. But in this case, it turns out that it's just the way... okay, that looks interesting. Ta-da! So in this case, it's just kind of the way the frame buffer works is you need to know what size things are. So anyways, this is, it's hard to read, but it's not impossible to read, right? So mosh, please stop hacking me is the image here. So we're going to save this for our notes. Falafel, and we'll call this I'm just going to call this mosh to yosi.xcf. Cool. And then we'll also just, for text so that I can cat it later, we'll vi yosi password dot. Mosh, please stop hacking me. Well, good news. This time it's not mosh. Okay, I got some stuff going on here in the Twitch chat. So I'm totally confused as what is happening right now. So steganography is, yeah, Golgothus has it. It's hiding text inside of an image in some way. And frankly, this isn't actually stego. What just happened here is there is a device in Linux called FB0 that is essentially some sort of like graphics frame buffer. What is showing on the screen is shown in can be found there, and when you copy it, it's basically taking a picture of it. It's copying an image, the raw data of what's being shown on the screen. If we find the exact resolution of what's being displayed on the screen, all the pixels will all of the pixels will line up and show you basically what's on there. Cool. Yeah, so hopefully that cleared up things a little bit for Leggy Leg. Moving back up to the YouTube stuff here. Google querying frame buffer resolution in Linux. Also, you can see Yosi is logged into a TTY, so that's kind of a hint. That's actually what led me along this. when I was checking out all the different like files that are owned by various people, it was the TTY and the frame buffer combination that was like, okay, maybe I should poke more at this, because first it's just like whatever my whatever this was, you know, like putting stuff out there. I was like, okay, cool, so I can write to it. That's not a big deal. And I went down a bunch more rabbit holes, and then seeing that, I did this. You can see that you can see here that Yossi is actually logged in locally, and so that is kind of in combination with this article and really just hours and hours and hours of rabbit holes that kind of led me down this path. Cool. So now we could just SU, but why? I'd like to keep things clean. So we'll cat Yossi password. Mosh, please stop hacking me. Good news, it's not Mosh. So you're welcome. You'll see at 10.10.10.73. All right, now we're in as Falafel. Let's do our typical sudo -L. Can't run anything. Great. Going back to the groups though, and this is something, this process was pretty quick for me, just because of my background as a Linux administrator. What I noticed earlier, and luckily this kept with me, is that Yossi is actually part of the disk group. Now, I already know the answer to this, but let's take a look at who owns, or what files group disk owns. Oops. Let's do that with a, and it's already on the screen now, but we'll just get this right. Boom. It owns all of the disks. These are, again, everything in Linux is a file, so even disks are a file on the file system. These are the actual disks. If I go into dev and do an ls-al, and we'll do an h just because, against SDA star. Oh, I guess it doesn't actually show the size. That's unfortunate. But these are the actual disks that are on the system. SDA star. Cool. So if we run like mount, you can actually see, maybe it doesn't have it. Oh, no, it does. Okay. You can actually see that dev SDA is root. It's mounted on the root. That means that's where all of the files are right here. I did something silly. Because I actually didn't know about this thing. I was talking to a friend after the fact about how they did it, because I was like, for sure this isn't the way this box is supposed to be done. We're going to switch over, because we're basically at the end here. We're going to switch over to where I actually work on this stuff. And you will notice that, where is it? You'll notice that SDA is 7 gigs. I exfiltrated this entire disk, like literally just there's a command called DD, and you can DD across a network. Old school sysadmins, hopefully no one does this anymore because this is an awful way to do things today. But old school sysadmins, Linux admins used to back up boxes this way. So you can actually do DD over the network. And basically what it does is you DD input file what you want, and you pipe that into tar and gunzip. And basically, as it's being copied off of the disk, you're compressing it, sending it over the network, and then writing it to disk. So this isn't the way I did it. There's another way. Does this go over the tar way? Yeah, so they're doing bzip instead of gzip, but this is kind of what we're talking about here. We're basically zipping it up and sending it over, which was awesome. I mean, it's rad because I can do all kinds of local stuff here. So if you notice, I have a mount directory here that's empty. There's nothing in it. That's because I did this. SDA1 to mount. And if you cd into mount, this is the entire file system of this box, like the entire file system. And we can go into /root and we can check this out, and it's owned by me because I am user ID 0 on this box. So I can go through and, oh wait, nope, I went to the wrong thing. So here's a lesson in dealing with mounted file systems. I get so used to, so I'm in what I think is /. So instead of just typing root, I typed /root, and that took me to my root. Anyways, so here's the root directory of the box. There's your root.txt. You can go into .ssh. There's your private key. There's the authorized keys file. So I could grab the private key and SSH in as root if I wanted. I can just read the root.txt here, which I won't do because if you've been with me for a while, I never actually put I never actually post the answers on there. You can do that for yourself. But I can just read it here, or I can, like let's do SSH 10, 10, 10, 73, not 83, 73, ID RSA. And I'm in as root, so I can do it that way. All kinds of crazy stuff because I have it locally, right? So I never actually knew this command existed, but there's a command called debugfs, which is super rad. And since Yossi is in the disk group, you can just dev sda1. And let's see. So I'm not super familiar with this. So we help, and we can create directories. We can remove directories. There's a we can cd into things. We can ls. Wow, ls just like ls like drops you into less, which is funny. So you can do all kinds of stuff here. Can you actually like read the files? You can link files if you want. Close file system, stats, change root, cd, stat. So yeah, you can link stuff. I think probably the way you'd want to do it is like linking. Let's see if we link root to temp root. I'm not actually sure how list directory show inode information. Am I just like missing this here? Open file system, close file system, set print blocks. Oh, I was only looking at half of this. Oh, that's funny. So pwd. You can undelete files? That's awesome. How did I not know about this freaking command? Oh, cat works in debugfs. Okay, so that's how. So I don't actually like to, again, we don't like to cat the actual root.txt, but we can cat like, you can go to cd.ssh and cat ID RSA. Okay, yeah, so cat works. Cool. So that's how you do that box. Like I said, the exfiltrating was a fun way to do it. Definitely not required, and it took me a while to do that. But it was a cool way to do it. And then speaking with someone else, I found out about debugfs, and looks like a damn useful thing, especially if it can. Please subscribe. Who's Who's on the box? Is that IPsec maybe? Must be somebody who has access to the VPN that I'm on. I don't even know what VPN I'm on anymore. I had to switch it today because the VPN I was originally on was like dying, so I'm not sure what's going on there. That's funny. Cool. So that's it. That's the stream. An hour and 46 for a hard box. That's pretty good. We did well, I think, today. Thanks everybody for tuning in. As usual, I'm on I'm on YouTube and Twitch and Mixer as well. So I hope everybody had a good time, and we'll see you next time. That could be a GPDR, I think. Yes, it could absolutely be a GPDR violation. Thanks, everybody. That's the end of the stream. Have a good one.